Welcome back, Beyonders, to Tabletop and Beyond. We are so happy to have you here with us. I am your host, Justin. I am here with Jason and Dan. Welcome, boys. Welcome.
Hello.
What's up?
Jason, you missed the memo to wear your glasses today, apparently.
Yes.
Oh.
Do you even wear glasses? I don't think you do, right?
I have a prescription, but I don't use it.
Oh, well. Look who's too fancy.
So
Okay.
tough.
All right. Fair enough.
Tough.
I think if you put glasses on, we wouldn't recognize who you are. It's like your Clark.
Yeah.
You know? Like, who is that guy?
Yeah. My wife wants glasses. She's like, I can't wait for my eyes to go out so I can get glasses and look smart. I'm like,
you can get just like not prescription glasses, right? Like
just fake ones.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. Like, anyway, but
All those
we
have to wear them. I wear them for style.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
My kids used to wear the 3D glasses if they were kind of a Ray-Ban shape. Like we go to the movies, they would keep the glasses and then pop the lenses out and walk around with them just with empty, just through the empty frames. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, welcome to the show today. We've got some good, exciting stuff for you today. The Walking Dead RPG came out maybe about a week, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And I think it was November 29th. So I think it was actually a week ago. And we had the opportunity, look what's in Jason's hand right there, the core rule book that we got from our Kickstarter. And we had the opportunity to give it a spin this weekend. And we had a great time doing that. So we wanted to give you our take on the Walking Dead universe, aka RPG, from AMC and Free League Press. So we're very excited to do that for you tonight. But of course, we get started with our Geek Week. Jason, kick us off with the Geek Week.
Ooh, my Geek Week. I have spent a lot of time working this week, but I did take advantage, and we talked about it last time, of the miniature market deals going on right now. I spent some money.
Oh my!
I spent and not that much really. Think about it. I spent about $168, and I got 24 games.
Wow!
What?
24 games for $164. I'm looking at my list right now, and the games run anywhere from $2 up to $55. And with actually $55 an outlier. Most of them are on the order of like $5 to $7. So huge sale. My problem is I like to think a lot about a game before I buy it. So every one of those games I divulged down into a YouTube video before deciding to buy it. So the good old $2 to $5 I spent on it, I spent about probably 25 minutes on each one of those. Next thing you know, it's like 2, almost 3 in the morning. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy whatever's in my cart.
Analysis paralysis solved. Just buy it and worry about the consequences later.
Yeah, but I got a lot of good games I think that are coming. I got Gang Rush. Remember Gang Rush, Dan?
Yes, I have it. I want to play it again. It's great.
It was $10, and I had
that's a steal.
Yeah,
that is a steal for $10. Now, for those who don't know, that Gang Rush is everybody has a unique car. And the board is a 3-dimensional bridge, and you're bobbing and weaving and throwing down obstacles and popping everybody's tires and oil slicking and avoiding cops because you guys have just knocked over a bank, and whoever gets to the finish line with the most money is the winner. It is a fun game, and I'd love to play it again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that game. But anyways, I got a bunch of fun games, so I'm excited to get that in. But that was spent a lot of my time this week looking at YouTube videos before I finally just fell asleep and pulled the trigger and bought them.
Nice. I was doing a bunch of research like yesterday on the Arkham Horror, the card game, kind of the expansions.
Yeah,
so
same. I went down a lot of those YouTube videos.
Oh my gosh. So that the way that they released it is like maybe the most confusing thing when you go to buy them, right? Because they have 6 cycles is what they call them. And like, for example, the Dunwich Legacy is like a cycle, right?
Yeah. The Mythos packs that come with it.
Yeah. So what they did is they released a Legacy version They call it the deluxe version, and then there's Mythos packs that you can buy with it. However, they recently in 2022 re-released it in a more consolidated pack where you can buy the campaign pack and the investigator pack, and it has everything from that whole cycle in these 2 boxes. And those 2 boxes are really hard to find. Like they're sold out in a lot of places, and so I was trying to price out if I bought all of the different things from Miniature Market, because a bunch of them are on sale right now, if that would be the equivalent of it. And it turns out it's way more expensive to buy them individually than it would be to buy them, in those 2 different packs. So I'm just gonna wait for them to come out and see if I can pick up some other ones. But they look really cool, and I need to get out. I need to play my thing. But for my Geek Week, we played that Miskatonic University again, and the kids were much more apt to playing it, and then they got the hang of it. And man, they can be pretty ruthless with it. Actually, now at this point, I've kind of created some monsters. So, but you know what? It's good. They're little competitive beasts. And the other thing is that I finished the first Black Company omnibus, and I had been talking about reading this forever. It's basically like 4 or 5 novels in one. It's like a huge book that took me forever, and it was really, the ending was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. And so then I started doing the preview. So this, to give you an example, I started reading the second omnibus of this, and the preview of it is like 135 pages, because that's like 10% of the book. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, jeez.
So it's like, it's a really big omnibus. So I'm like, I'll just read this preview for a long time. And then if I feel like continuing the story, I'll just buy it. Because I mean, that's like 1/10 of the book, right? So anyway, but yeah, that was kind of my Geek Week, finishing that up and playing some games. It was pretty good. Pretty good. And obviously I prepped. I did a lot of prepping for the Walking Dead session that we ran on Friday. And so we'll talk about that though. But I did a lot of prepping for that. So yeah, Dan, how was your Geek Week?
Well, it was one that fell on the cutting room floor last time we got together because I had so much to complain about my RPG sessions. I have another session with that group this week, by the way, so I'll let you know how that goes. No, I finished painting every miniature for the World of Smog, Rise of Mala.
Oh,
including, this is the Baker Street expansion. It has Holmes and Watson and Irene Adler and Colonel Moran, and it's just fun. Had a great time painting it, and 3 large expansions are all painted now. So I painted, I don't know, 60 or so minis, and they're very unique sculpts. You only the highest, I only had like 3 groups of 8. Everything else was an individual paint with an individual story and color scheme and all that stuff. So let me just say, I certainly love CMON sculptors. They really know how to tell a story in a mini. You really have to zero in on that mini and figure out what's going on and look at the art. And you're like, oh, there's a story here just in the mini. So my World of Smog is complete. There is one expansion I've never bought. I've seen it on eBay, but I figured I will not buy it until I play all the expansions I have, which is plenty. So I'm excited about that. Nice. So it's great. It's an important thing. I spent a lot of nights on it, lost a lot of brownie points with the boss because I would disappear and keep cranking away and cranking away and cranking away. But it's good. And having a good selection of metallics is really important when you're doing steampunk minis. You gotta have good coppers and greedy golds, and all of those colors are really, really important. And washes do wonderful things over metallics. I had a much more successful time getting the look I wanted doing a wash over a metallic versus a metallic speed paint, which are only kind of much more, even though I have the entire line from Army Painter, it's much more of a niche product. It only works on really rough surfaces. The more the more concave and convex the surface is, the better. The smoother, the worse they turn out. So, but a standard metallic with a wash is magnificent. So, now I just got to play that game. I've only played it like 3 times, and I have hundreds of minis. It feels like
It's
That's
like
okay.
your version of my Deep Madness.
Yes. It feels like Deep Madness. It feels like I'm getting crazier and crazier, but
5 or 6 boxes of minis and expansions, and I'm not even through the first book yet.
it should really slow you down when you're like, well, I want to buy this expansion because the minis are gorgeous and I know I'll like painting them. Stop yourself right there. Stop yourself right there. Slow it down. That's all I have to say. Otherwise, you're swimming in expansions you never play. That's my goal.
I mean, with that said, though, there's a lot of people that will be like, I want to buy that expansion because I'll paint those minis eventually, and they never do it.
And they never do it.
But you have. So, I mean, there is, you can at least say that.
If you guys remember January of this year, it was one of my resolutions. And I still probably have about 30 or 40 minis I want to paint between now and New Year's. I think I could do it. Even with how busy I am. It's the minis I have from Horrified, from New Angeles, and a couple of leftovers from Journeys in Middle Earth that I reprimed because I didn't like the way I painted them the first time. I really don't have very many. And then that's everything I bought in 2022 and before. And then in 2024, I can paint my 2023 games that I purchased.
That's right. That's right.
Now, when I'm dissing expansions, I'm not talking about meta chasing for a war game. That's completely rational and above board. All the expansions for war games that I've bought, I've already glued up and painted, except for my Red Harvest box for Warcry. But that's a lot. That's a lot of work right there. You guys know a Red Harvest box.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of sprues in there. It's going to take me a good long while to get to the bottom of that thing.
For sure.
In 2024. So that was my Geek Week update on painting.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. I've got some jade obelisks that I need to finish up on my desk. They're very close to being done. So that'll just be another warband that's finished, which is great.
Finished that you may never play competitively, but you've got it.
That's right. And I like having a bunch of warbands that, like, if we do a kind of a learn to play or meet at a store or something like that, I can bring a bunch and people can pick up and play. They don't need.
Or the meta shifts and you're sitting on a gold mine.
Exactly. So it's mostly the collector in me, right?
Mostly the completist. Yeah, I know. I know
exactly.
the feeling. Trust me, I have way too many Daughters of Cain. I have 2.5 lists of Daughters of Cain. But how can I play 2 at the same time, right?
Right. So awesome. Well, it sounds like pretty good Geek Weeks. I think that as we kind of head into December, it's going to break one of 2 ways. Either one, we're going to get more time to kind of hobby and stuff like that, or we'll find more time to maybe game with the family and things like that. So it'll be kind of interesting as thing goes. And Jason, good luck wrapping all those 26 games or whatever it is and putting those under the tree.
Well, they're not for everybody. Help.
I've bought so much crap for myself this time of year with tools I've needed to like get stuff done, not gaming wise, but they're in cardboard boxes. I'm like, if I could just pop that thing open, that would make my life easier. But then my kids wouldn't have the joy of pretending to buy me something. So
right.
I justified it with my wife by saying, "Hey, last night I bought a bunch of stocking stuffer things for our kids."
Nice.
4 or 5. And then 20 for me.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's 1 for you, 1 for me, 2 for you, 1, 2 for me, 3 for you,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 for me.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you what I have to deal with is that there's one kid in my family who everything on the Christmas list is from the Pokemon store, and you can't like even find that stuff at Amazon.
Yeah.
You can't get away with that, Jay. There's literally nothing in that store I want to buy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Awesome. Well, I hope that Jason and Dan, you both saved enough room for your Santa's wish list that we're going to do in 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. I got to start working on that. We're going to have to
come up with that. So yeah, start thinking about it now.
Yeah. What do you wish for when you have everything? What do you wish for? What do you wish for?
Exactly. World peace. So Awesome. Okay, well, let's see. Dan, do we have any news today?
I have just one small, little, teeny, tiny, little news drab. The new D&D edition is coming out, and a date got released. So, there's a new Wizards of the Coast, in their excellent marketing, put out a poster for PAX Unplugged that had the 2024 core rulebook with a release date of 5/21/24, so the 21st of May. Then they rapidly took that down.
Whoops.
Once again, Wizards of the Coast. Slow clap for Wizards of the Coast. Good job, guys. Good job. The same exact dwarf, and it just says 2024 Player's Handbook. So they put out a date, they put out a core book, and then they ran in the opposite direction and said sometime in 2024 there will be a Player's Handbook. So that's good news, but nonetheless, once again, Wizards of the Coast finding a way to make it weird. They just made it weird. So there's also going to be Vecna, Eve of Ruin. I wonder if that is. I wonder if they're trading off of the extra Vecna press they're getting from Stranger Things. Quests from the Infinite Staircase in July, and a book on the making of D&D in June. So there's lots of stuff coming from Wizards of the Coast. It should be really for you D&D players out there. It's time to evolve into the next system. So what will that mean? What it won't mean? Supposedly this is going to be the easiest transition ever between one edition to the next, but we won't know that until we have it all in our hot little hands in its final version.
Yes, indeed.
That's the news, and it's just teeny tiny little monstrous D&D new edition news. So
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the next edition that they were going to come out with was supposedly going to be one of these where they could do continuous updates. Like this would be kind of quote unquote the last edition, right?
Yeah. And it's supposed to be very backwards compatible with 5th edition. Yeah. But they did this once before when they went from 3 to 3.5. So we expect there to be some real differences. There is an 80-page document out there that you can go playtest. If you want to be a playtester, you can go pull down the 80-page version of the game, and you can compare and contrast the difference between 5th edition and this version. That's beyond my attention span to want to do that, especially when it's still in draft form. But there are key differences. It's just they still want to sell all their the old library and have it be relevant. So I can't blame them for still wanting to sell the old.
I mean, it would be hard because they would have to totally revamp D&D Beyond, right, with all of the material on there, and it's like. And
the revamp is part of their critical path, is they want to have a D&D Beyond to be a meta space, a 3-dimensional space, a virtual game board. They want all that stuff, and I think they'll do it. They have the money to do it. Will they do it well? Will they do it better than other parties are currently doing it in this space? I don't know.
Well, we'll played the other day when we played. We were using their kind of beta map tool that was integrated with it now, and it's very similar to like Owlbear Rodeo. If you're familiar with that, where you just get to basically drag tokens on and you can move them around. What do you think of that, Jason? Do you like using the map?
I liked Owlbear Rodeo. Did I like using the D&D map that was on Beyond?
Yeah.
I didn't have to run it, so it was fine with me. I think we just waited for you to like alt between 2 different maps to do the Fog of War thing.
When Mike was running it, you mean?
Yeah, he had to like have 2 maps.
Yeah.
That he was constantly like updating this one and then making that the front.
That's true.
It didn't have kind of the Fog of War that Owlbear, I think, didn't. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I don't really care. I'm a theater of the mind guy.
Yeah.
So when maps come to the table, like they're okay for me, but I still like play the thing out in my head.
I think. I think that like the more tools you start to add to it, and if you're not as proficient to it, it ends up bogging the game down. Because you're like, hold on, guys, let me just do this real quick.
Click,
And that
click,
real
click,
quick
click,
turns
click,
into
click,
like
click,
5
click.
minutes or whatever, you know.
Well, that's why
Um,
that's why I haven't been on Roll20 in like 10 years, because when we were first using Roll20, granted it's been a long time, I'm sure it's way better now. It was so
Yeah.
clunky to try to use Roll20. I felt like it took so much time every time you tried to play a game on Roll20 just to
I
use
tried
the
playing
system.
Earth Dawn on Roll20.
Well, that's two whammies. That's two whammies.
I wanted to die. I literally wanted to die. It was the most painful gaming.
Have we talked about bad roleplay game mechanics? I'm sure we have.
I don't know that we have. We should do it.
We'll have to go look at our archives. It sounds like something
know.
we would have talked about. I think
Yeah.
we did.
Maybe.
But maybe we should just do an episode on the worst stinking RPGs we've ever encountered and just moan about them and complain. It's terrible. Welcome to the internet. It's
Like
awful.
Grognards.
Grognards. There's nothing good about this. Rare. But yeah, we could all stand around and beat up the fax machine in the field like Office Space with Earth Dawn. And maybe we should invite Jamin on to tell us why we should have liked Earth Dawn more than we did.
Well, our friend
we have a
Sean
friend in our
loves
local
it
group
as
who
much.
still likes it a lot.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, you know him.
I'm sure I do. Okay, cool. Good to know.
But he still offers it whenever we get together.
Everybody starts shaking their head no. Don't make any sudden moves. Don't start that one.
You know, I've played it a few times. We're getting on a side here on Earth Dawn, but I've played it a few times. Anyways. Yeah. But anyway, so back to Roll20. I mean, it was.
Love it, Jason. That's great. That's awesome.
Thanks for bringing in that sharp point right there. I really understood what you meant.
Very helpful contribution.
That was good.
Very helpful contribution.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's talk about an RPG that I found that I really, really, really like, and that is the Walking Dead RPG that recently just came out from Free League Press in conjunction with AMC. As you can see, like the AMC branding is front and center on here, so they got the license to use it. And we had a chance. The Kickstarter fulfilled in early to mid-November, and then it came out for purchase in late November. So you can go get this right now. You can get the PDF versions, obviously, on Drive-Thru RPG, or you can get all the physical stuff that you want, including the PDFs, on Free League Publishing, their website. So go ahead and check them out because I think that this game is very worth it. Now, before we begin, I think it's important. Dan and Jason, have you guys seen were you avid watchers of The Walking Dead at all?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Excellent.
All right, we equal out. Balance. Yep. There's balance in the universe.
That's right.
Now, Jason, you say you're an avid watcher. Did you get to the very end of the series?
No, I did not get to the very end of the series. But I was also a comic book reader, a heavy comic book reader.
Did you finish the comic book series, or is it still going?
I didn't.
I don't know if it's going.
I don't know if it's still going. I mean, it's been it's been about, gosh, is that 15 years?
Mm-hmm.
12 to 15 years. Yeah.
Oof.
So, I mean, it started on AMC in 2010. So the comics came out a few years before.
Probably 2005,
that, right?
3 or 5. Yeah, maybe we could look it up real quick, but yeah.
We're all Googling it furiously.
I can tell you the game store that I bought my first Walking Dead comic trade in doesn't exist anymore.
Wow. That's kind of crazy.
But so it's been a while. Yeah. I remember when
2003.
2003, yeah. So it sounds right. Yeah, so about 20 years. 20 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I remember when Robert Kirkman he was commenting on it that when he was writing it, he didn't really know where the story was going. He just, as he wrote the story, he says, whatever happens, happens. If somebody dies, they just die because that's what happened in the story. I don't have this planned out. Which I thought was
hardcore.
Yeah. I'm sure he did he had some forward vision, but there was probably a lot of fog of war that he was just writing away.
Well, I noticed that if you read the comics, they happened in arcs, right? There's usually like 3 or 4 episodes that were kind of an arc, and then I'm sure that he had those arcs planned out, and then be like, okay, well, what do we do next, right? And so, yeah. Anyway, the TV show felt very much like that as well. Like with each season, it kind of felt like its own distinct arc a lot of times.
And the current print run ended in 2019.
Okay.
So so they went for 16 years.
Well, I think the interesting thing is The Walking Dead is very much part of our zeitgeist. I mean, it was coming out at the height of zombie apocalypse stuff. And, I swear to you, like in 2010, 2011, all the way up to like 2015 type of stuff, you could not get away from people talking about zombies. And like there was zombie this, zombie that, zombie this, zombie that. Like it just was like a whole thing about zombies. Just like almost the mid 2000s were all about vampires, right? With Twilight and all that kind of stuff. So
well, you want to know why that is? Sociologists have proved that during Republican administrations, vampires are popular, and during Democratic administrations, zombies are popular. And because Republicans the vampires represent elites like Republicans, and zombies represent the unwashed masses. The Democrats. Yeah. There's actually been papers written on this subject. It'll tweak your noodle as soon as you start looking at it. Remember all that Twilight crap that came out under the last that 8-year period of time when we had George W. Bush? Yep. You can't make this stuff up.
Interesting. So
that is interesting. I would have said that zombies were rising in popularity in the early 2000s. In the 2000, I think the Walking Dead comic that came out, there was a lot of horror writing fiction that started to come out with zombies. 28
the theory doesn't cover
later,
the comics.
28 days later came out. There's a lot of, I think we started to see a rise up in early 2000s, and it started to ramp up to right when we got to 2010, and it was going full strong.
Super zeitgeist.
Yeah.
It was kind of crazy. And I think even now when people think about zombie apocalypse, like the first thing that they think of is like the Walking Dead universe, unless they're like super nerds and like, okay, well, we're talking about slow zombies or fast zombies, like in 28 days later, right? Like they start like parsing it. But when people say like, I'm prepping for the zombie apocalypse or whatever, usually the thing that they have in their mind is like the Walking Dead universe. Right?
You think that's true?
I do.
You don't think it's the Night of the Living Dead, the George Romero universe?
Used to be Night of the Living Dead and
I think it used
I
to
Am
be.
Legend and I Am Legend.
I think
it's been replaced by Walking Dead.
Yep, 100%.
That's a lot of zombie content.
100%. You've gone out and gathered your user statistics and Metacritic scores.
Super scientific peer-reviewed study here, Jason.
Yeah, okay.
And,
I think you're right.
Look, I think
it's what's most on the front.
Jason refuted my assertions too, and mine pretended to be fact. Yours were an expression of opinion, and he went after you.
That's right. So, look, I think the other thing is it's kind of like the Game of Thrones effect, where it became super popular on TV, where it started pulling in normies, right? People who normally weren't into the like horror or zombies or whatever, they were watching The Walking Dead too.
Yeah.
So
totally agree.
I think there's more, more than like it hit more of the bell curve than, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead or, Dawn of the Dead or any of that stuff. Right. So anyway, so with any RPG that heavily relies on an IP, so take, like a Star Wars, take Blade Runner, take Alien, take a lot of these ones that we've talked about on the show. You run the risk, in my opinion, of making it very kitschy, right? Or very gimmicky, because what people expect when they come in playing a Walking Dead universe is they want the Walking Dead, right? And so the designers and creators, it's kind of a tightrope where they can go too far to one side, which is more original content, mechanics, etc., and it doesn't feel like The Walking Dead, or they can go too far to the other side where it's too much of The Walking Dead and the mechanics stink, and it's just, you're like, okay, we're just playing in the TV show and reliving the TV show episodes or whatever. And
I have a perfect example of this.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is the Wendy's RPG.
Okay.
The Wendy's, the fast food joint, when they created an RPG, it's just optimized to just play as a one-shot, as a lark. Mm-hmm. And the mechanics are large. I mean, you could adapt it to be something more than it really was, but really don't. There's way better ones. So that one's like overly tuned to the IP.
Yeah.
Right. Where you would say something like a GURPS or a Genesis or Fate. Some of those other RPG systems are completely genericized and designed to drop in IPs as needed, and you flavor to taste. And so what you're saying is somewhere between those two polarities of a generic system and something that's overly tuned to an IP, you've got to hit that sweet spot, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I personally think that this book does a really good job balancing it. When we played it, we had a very good Walking Dead feel, and I'll let Jason maybe talk a little bit about that. We had a very good Walking Dead feel, but it definitely felt like its own story. I didn't have to rely on Michonne. I didn't have to rely on Rick Grimes. I didn't have to rely on Carl, although I would have really liked at one point to say, "Get in the house, Carl," because that would have been a great moment from the movies or the TV show. But we didn't have to rely on those things to draw us into the universe. We were already there, and we had a great story. So, what are your thoughts about that, Jason?
Very good. What's the word? Good atmosphere. It felt true to the franchise. Felt like I was playing in a world that was one that I would have seen on an episode of The Walking Dead without having to repeat an episode of The Walking Dead. If I wanted to come to the table, and I did, to feel like I was being a survivor in that universe created by Kirkman and then expanded on by AMC's writers, I would have said I got that experience for sure with this game. So very happy with the way that it gave the atmosphere and it gave the feeling. I'm just flipping through the book. Even the book, the artwork, just it makes you feel like you are in a modern system. One of the things, there you go. I've always been curious. Here's the thing. I've always wanted to play an RPG that was, like modern 20, right? Modern D20 is supposed to be one that's actually set in like kind of real life, right? It's not science fiction. It's not fantasy. It's just you're in the real space, right? Modern D20. Yeah. But you don't really hear a lot about modern D20. I think that's because when we sit down to play games, we don't want to play our lives, right? Unless you're Dwight Schrute and you want to create, a guy in the game of life that is just a paper salesman, right? The only difference is he can fly, but
everybody flies.
Everybody flies. Yeah. This game gave me scratch that itch I've had for a really long time of playing a game that was in understand it's zombies, but it was a realistic world, meaning we had the weapons we have today. We have the tools we have today. We have the same skills and powers we have today, which are none, right? Mm-hmm. And so I felt like I was playing kind of a modern D20 realistic time frame game, but in a fun, alternate future. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And when we get into mechanics, we'll talk about that. But really loved the thematic element. It really drove it home.
I didn't think about that, Jason. I love your point there, which is we didn't have to. We spent zero time explaining the world. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes
we already live in it.
Yeah, we're already living in it. Except there's zombies.
There's one right there.
And the only thing, I mean, I did have to explain, like in the beginning, the mechanics of the threat meter, which we can talk about, which is like how you kind of personify the zombie threat. I guess personified might not be the right word, but how you kind of represent the zombie threat that's happening. There's a threat meter that you go through. And I mean, that's like the only thing I needed to really explain about the world, just so that you guys understood like how to deal with increasing zombies, right? But like, I didn't need to explain to you what a gun was. I didn't need to explain to you like how a rope ladder worked in this thing. You know what I mean? And I guess you don't have to do that in some other games too, but it's just like you guys were in real life. You knew how to start a truck. You knew how to hotwire something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, or try to anyway, like, because like that's what you guys would do in normal life. So the learning curve was a little bit easier. Yeah, right.
So is the fun part saying, hey, how do I deal with this fantastic situation of a world consumed by zombies within the confines of just being a normal guy? Is that kind of, if I'm going to approach this game, that's the fun is, okay, if you're an electrician, you're an electrician, but you got to deal with existing amongst zombies.
I think so. Yeah. I think the lethality of the game helped make that fun too. This game was, I think this game is more lethal than any game I played.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Shadow of the Demon Lord was lethal, but not like this.
And Mothership was bad too, but not like this.
Yeah. I mean, your characters, and what's interesting is we had a conversation about this afterwards. This game, so I'm going to kind of pull back to like the 100,000 view and 100,000 foot view, and then kind of like go down a little bit. But this game is what I like about this, and the way that it is designed, is that it's not about your characters, it's about your haven. It's about your collective of survivors that you have, and knowing that like death is all around you, including the people that you're playing, right? Including your characters that you have. And so for me, what this allows you to do with this game in particular is we could run a 1 or 2 or 3 arc like session in like January, for example, and we could totally leave this campaign, and I'm putting campaign in quotation marks here, and because it's all about your haven, right? You could leave your haven where it's at, and we could pick up another session in July as if nothing, like no time had gone by. Like, you can't do that, in my opinion, while you're running a D&D book. Like, you have to kind of go back and be like, wait, who did we talk to about this before? Who did we, like, what's the plot of this again? Like, where are we doing it? Like, if you miss a couple sessions of D&D, like, you've got to kind of do a lot of catch up. I don't think you have to do that with this. You can play this in a series of one-shots. As long as it's surrounding your haven, then that's the continuity that you need.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is the simplicity of the character, because you are a normal person. Like, if I came back to D&D after even a month and a half of, or maybe 2 months of not playing a character, I'd have to remind myself, what was I doing in terms of the tree I was going down with my skills and my feats, to try to see what were those combos I was going for. Here, I mean, you're a normal person. Like, I picked the character sheet up, 6 months later. I'm still a normal person. There's not like special trees and talents and things that you're like creating these unique combos. Is like, no, I look at my sheet, I'm like, all right, I'm good at shooting a pistol. I'm not good at shooting a pistol. Like, it's really easy to interpret what your character can do looking at your character sheet really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's only, like we said, there's only 3 hit points for them. And if you get shot, that's 2 hit points minimum.
Minimum.
And if they get 2 successes on that hit,
you're
that's
down.
3 and you're down.
But that's real life, right? I mean, you get shot with a bullet, like, you're going down. Like in real life, most of the time, right?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
guns are lethal.
They are, Yeah. And well, even the knife, like, I think TV and other video games, they glorify like the ability to take massive amounts of damage and keep going. But the reality is, man, and one knife slice to the right place and you're out of the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you've only got that. You have what is it, 4 characteristics
Yeah.
that you have. And under that you've got 3 abilities, like stealth, scavenge, or I guess it's stealth, survival, scout, melee combat, ranged combat. I mean,
Leadership.
there's just a leadership. Sorry, there's just a bunch of those things, but there's not that many, and it's really easy to say like, okay, like I want to try to persuade somebody to do that. That's going to be a manipulation roll, and I know exactly how to roll this. So the mechanics I think are very, very easy to pick up, easy to run, easy to explain to new people, and I think that is one of the benefits of this game is that, as we said before, AMC brought in a whole bunch of normies into the zombie world, right? And I think that you might be able to get some normies playing the Walking Dead RPG that haven't really played RPGs before, much easier than like if they're not into fantasy, it's going to be hard to get them into D&D, for example. But they might play a one-shot zombie session with you. And can you explain these mechanics easy enough for a new person?
Mm.
So, what do
Especially
you think,
with
Jason?
the Free League Year Zero engine, right? Where you're just rolling D6 dice. Everybody's used to D6 dice, even if you're not an RPG guy. What's this polyhedral thing? Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter in this game, right?
Yep.
You're just looking for sixes and ones. That's it.
Yep.
Super easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, it's also easy to misinterpret the rules.
That never happened on Friday.
No.
So let's talk about what sets this game apart from. So we've played Alien, we've played Blade Runner, and they have a lot of similar mechanics. You've got stress dice that if you roll a 1 on your stress dice, it can cause problems. In The Walking Dead, they call it a mess up, right? You mess up, and so let's talk about mechanics and what sets this game apart from like maybe some of the other products that are out there that are similar. What would you start with, Jason?
Well, I think that this game has 2 types of combat. When you fight other players or humans, it feels you start to enter an area of the game where you feel like you are really playing other combat in other RPGs. But the zombies, I think, are unique. Because when I picked this game up, I thought, okay, we're going to fight zombies. It'll be curious to see how we do zombies when there's 100 of them at you. And what's fun is that the zombie system, the system for the zombies is totally different than when you're fighting humans. And I think that sets it apart as a unique mechanic. When you're fighting a zombie, depending on the threat level, which just represents like the intensity of the zombie situation around you. So if it's like a threat level, what's the lowest? 1?
1.
If it's a threat level 1, there's like a couple walkers around. But if it's like a threat level 4, like there are walkers everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got to do something to solve it. But dealing with when you do encounter a walker or a zombie, when you do encounter a zombie, you don't fight it. It's not, you don't go into combat. You just solve the situation whatever way you want with your skill set in whatever way you describe, and you just roll the dice and you're looking for a success.
Yeah.
If you get a success, great. You solved that zombie problem and you can move on. You can do it. You can say, I'm going to run around the building and try to outrun the zombie. Okay, give me a mobility roll. I'm going to try to hide in a bush. Give me a stealth roll. I'm going to try to hit it. Okay, give me a combat roll. Just whatever you want to do, you choose, and that's how you'll solve the zombie, which is totally different than when you're in combat with another human. Then you're back into your you're kind of rolling your attack, you're rolling your things there. So I thought that was I really liked that because it made, when you were dealing with a threat with humans where you're firing at each other and then zombies start to come in because of the noise, immediately when a zombie kind of comes into the fray, you've got to kind of switch gears and be creative on how to get away from the zombie that's creating another problem in front of you. So I liked that. I thought that was unique.
Yeah,
Probably
we had a
one of the biggest
situation where you guys were in a bar and fighting, and it created enough noise that a zombie came in through the window, right? Like
Yeah.
crashed through the window and on top of one of the other players, and he had to do something, right? And he's like, well, I want to get out from under it. Great. Roll a mobility, right? Or roll a force, depending on what you want to do, right? You want to push it off, you just want to try to get out from under it. And and the option is still there. Well, I want to attack it and kill it. Okay, great.
Sure.
Do it. Roll it. Tell me how you're going to solve this problem, which can be very creative. And one thing that I really like about that is it really fosters the player's imagination in this game, because the DM just says, all right, like there's a zombie that's literally within like arm's reach of you. What are you going to do? Like the DM's not telling you, oh, the zombie does this and bites you in the neck. No, like that's not the DM's role. The DM is just there to say, like, okay, like the zombie's there. What do you do? Tell me what you do. And if you fail it, all right, well, I have a table for you to roll on. Let's find out what happened. I think Jason, your character, you ended up jumping out of a window at one point, slicing your leg on the window because you didn't do so good getting out of it. And then a zombie came up and kind of fell on you and, pulled your boot off and bit your toe, right, as you're trying to get away. And in stumbling backwards, you ended up like impaling yourself on some of the shards of glass in the window and dying.
Yeah.
And that was all a series of rolls that happened. And then you just described like what happened, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was all because I missed my attack, and this comes to the lethality of the game, right? Like, if you're going to try to solve a zombie situation by getting up to the zombie and hitting it with your melee weapon, you're taking on a huge risk by being right next to that thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I rolled my dice, and this has the same kind of stress mechanic that like Aliens did, or other year zeros, where if you roll a 1 on a stress dice, something bad happens, right? In this game, it's called you roll in a walker, and that means you mess up. Something messes up. And I went to swing with my hammer to try to be quiet, and I missed, and I rolled a walker, and Justin rolled on a table, I think, and the table was that he basically bit me. So then it's like I missed, and he fell on me, and I fell back, and he bit my boot. Well, by biting my boot, because I'd already been injured by the glass, it was enough to make me broken, which is when you lose all your hit points, right? Or your 3 wounds or whatever. And when you get broken, you take another stress, and you roll on a critical injury chart, which is another part of like, Free League's games and their New Year's Zero engine. Whenever you go down, you take like some kind of critical injury, right? Well, the critical injury I rolled was like the second highest from the top of the table, which is like instant lethal. And it was like it was head pierced. So I was like, all right, the zombie fell on me, bit my boot. I fell back, and I fell back onto the glass and then impaled through my neck. The glass that I broke through. And that was it. My character was dead. In like one bad roll, my character was dead because I chose to take the risk of going right up to that zombie to attack it. Head first, when I was already injured. Right.
It's not D&D.
It's not D&D. And the other thing is that even if I hadn't gotten that critical injury, I would have had to have amputated my foot within the hour.
In 3 hours.
In 3 hours. Yeah. And so I was gone anyways. I was gone anyways.
Yeah.
It's a lethal world.
Yeah. So there's, it was really great. What I do like are the rules for the swarm. So like you've got these like one-off encounters with zombies, like one-on-one type of thing, right? Now with the swarms, the interesting thing is like if there's a huge like amount of zombies that are coming at you, you take 2 or 3 players and depending on who's being surrounded by the zombies, and they all roll an action. Like one can say, well, I want to try to run away. I want to try to throw a thing that would distract them. I want to try to attack one, right? And they all just kind of do something. And as long as they get more successes than what the threat level of that current zombie is, then they're safe still. And it reduces the threat level by 1. If they fail it, then you've got bad things that happen with the zombies, right? That's when you have like a walker attack that happens with people, and they've got to like do again like that roll and try not to get bit and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. I think it's really creative on how they handled mass games. So the interesting thing is I've played in, like D&D has like an optional like mass battle mechanic, and there's a lot of other games I played that have had mass battle mechanics. This one, it was the simplest to understand in my opinion, and probably the simplest to explain to other players on like how and what to do. Full disclosure though, I totally forgot to use this mechanic in the game because we were caught up in the moment and I just forgot to use it. But we did similar things with it, just not this exact thing. But I think it's great. I mean, you got the zombies closing in on you. What are you gonna do? Like how are you gonna lessen this threat that's around you right now?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to work together. I mean, it's a combined role, right? You got to work together to solve the problem. So I think it's awesome. And so every player is going to want to play to their strength. There might be one guy that's really good about survival. Like it might be really good about survival. And so if he can explain that role, he's like, well, I pick up a concrete brick and I throw it onto a car to try to set the car alarm off or something like that. Right? That would be a great survival role.
Yeah.
And, like that's how they could use that one in that situation, because maybe they suck at fighting, actually. So they shouldn't fight. They should do something else. And maybe someone's like really good about like running. Well, I'm going to run and try to pull off some of them in a different direction to lessen the horde or something like that, So again, the players get control of this to explain the narrative of what's happening. I love how it takes it out of the GM's hands. They don't have to come up with what's happening. The players are describing the action, and they get to roll and see if it happens. And if not, the GM gets the fun of finding out on the table what happened to them. So
it's a very it's a macro approach to the game, which I really enjoy. Dealing with swarms, you deal it at a macro level. Even with when you get into combat or brawls with other humans, which is another kind of interesting way, is the phases of a brawl. It also is a little bit of a macro level too. In fact, I think in one of the parts of the book, it talks about like the concept of having cover, right? Like there's never really like this cover where you can't be attacked. You just have cover. And so I think they even say in one of the call out boxes, I don't know which page it's on, but they say like, if somebody has cover, they're behind a bar completely and the enemy attacks and still hits them. It represents the enemy like moving around the bar or like like leaning over the bar or something like that. It's not that you ever truly are like safe in any way in the game. And you just have to role play that it's not a very rigid play out of the system. Let the dice tell you what happens and then make it work. But they have these 4 brawl phases, Justin, which I think would be good to go over, because I thought we didn't necessarily play it right, but after kind of going back and looking at it, I think it's a unique part of the system too.
Yeah, so everybody gets to take one action in the combat round, right? Which is pretty standard. But you have 6 options of things that you can do, okay? The first option is that you can take cover. Like if you're being shot at or you're going to be shot at, you can dive behind something.
And this is an order too.
This is an order, right? So you can dive behind something, and what that does is the person shooting at you needs 2 successes to be able to hit you, right? So it kind of deletes your first success. So you can try to take cover. The second one is that you get to shoot. You get to do ranged combat. And then the third one is that you get to do melee combat. And the great thing about the melee combat in this is, as long as you're within close range, you don't have to be close and then engaged. As long as you're within close range, which is like 20 feet, it assumes that you can run up to somebody and whack them, right? So you don't have to be like, oh, well, I'm taking my 5 feet of movement and then I'm going to whack them, and then my other 10 feet of movement. Like, it's not that granular. Just run up and hit them. Like that's how it would work in the game, So you just kind of built that into the close combat. Fourth is movement. Now, that's kind of a misnomer. You're like, well, didn't you just say that you could move into combat? What this is if you're like from really far away, right? So they have it as short, long, and extreme ranges, right? So if I wanted to go from long to short, or sorry, it's like short, medium, long is what it is. If I wanted to go from long to medium or medium to short, that would be the movement, right? To try to get so if I'm on the other side of the city block and I hear gunfire, I'm going to need to take that movement to start running, right?
It's kind of like the zones in the Alien RPG where you can move from one zone to the next zone, and then you can move once you're in the zone, you can move from that zone to engaged or not. Like they take the micro management out of it and just kind of move it more towards a macro role play.
Yeah. Yeah, and the last, not the last one, but the fifth option that you have is first aid. So some of these things, some of these critical injuries that you get, it's a great little table. Sometimes I have to roll, and it will tell you if this person does not get first aid in 2 minutes, they are going to die. Like they have like hemorrhaging blood, or they got a punctured lung or something like that. That there's some injuries that you need to address in days, or some injuries you need to address in hours. And there's some injuries you need to address in minutes, and sometimes you just die, right? Like Jason's impaling that happened, right? So you can choose to do first aid in that round. And then the last one, what I love is other. So this is like, well, I need to go over there and shut the door or bar the gate, or I need to like go type on a, like do a loudspeaker to get the zombies away from us or something like that, right? Or I need to start the car. So that's just kind of your like miscellaneous other. And it works in order like that. So basically the NPCs will target first. So I'll say, okay, this person is going to try to shoot Jason's character, and this person is going to try to do melee combat to Dan's character. And I say that first, and then all the players get to respond and say, okay, well, I'm going to shoot back, or I'm going to take cover, or I'm going to go do first aid on that guy. And then you just run it. You go, okay, phase 1, taking cover. Who's doing that? Okay, got it. Phase 2, range combat. All right, roll your dice. Range 3, melee combat, or phase 3. You just walk through the phases, and that's your thing. What I love about this is there's no rolling for initiative. You don't have to see who goes first. You don't have to kind of gameplay of like, well, if you try to go first and then I come in after that, and like you never do that in combat. You're never like, well, let's try to combo this kind of crazy. Like you're just shooting to stay alive, And so you don't have to do that. And in fact, one of the things that I liked about this, that it says in here, it says players should be making decisions quickly. And if they don't make it quickly, then there's some consequences for that, right, Jason?
Yeah. The players take a stress. The GM can give the players a stress if they're indecisive.
Yeah. So
that's helpful. That's really helpful. It's good for keeping the setting going. It's good for keeping the universe going.
Yeah. Robert Schwab, if you ever listen to his plays of Shadow of the Demon Lord, he does this really good with fast turns. Like he makes fast turns, or what they're called, fast turns. He'd be like, fast turns, anybody? And somebody go, then he'd be like, fast turns, okay, slow turns.
Yep.
It's like you know what you're doing or you don't. If you don't know what you're doing, you're a slow turn.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's really great. The thing about combat is that this is very similar to the Pendragon RPG that we played, where and this is where a lot of the lethality comes in. It's opposed rolls. So again, you're not rolling initiative with the NPCs out there. You both roll at the same time. Dan, I'm targeting my NPC's targeting you. You are targeting my NPC. Let's roll together. Whoever has the most successes wins. They get to do the damage, right? If you tie, you both get shot. Boom. Like it's as easy as that. And you don't have to worry about it. The interesting thing is, okay, my NPC is targeting you, Dan. You're targeting my NPC. Jason's also targeting my NPC. You and I will roll off, but Jason gets a free roll against me.
Right.
There
you go.
So you only get to target one person at a time, basically.
Yeah.
So
that's why
so
it's important. That's why it's
go ahead.
important when you get to the ranged combat phase to force your GM to pick their targets with their NPCs before the players pick, so that you can choose who you want to oppose or not. Yep.
So, and that's it right there. That's combat. That's how combat works. It's super simple. It flows really fast and really easy. We had a great bar fight, like I was talking about. And even though I kind of messed this up a little bit, I was giving everyone an action in every phase. So not just one action for the whole round, because of the way I read it. I read one word wrong and didn't understand it. And so, but basically we just crammed like 4 phases into one round.
Yeah.
You
just did it faster.
We just did it much faster. But the great thing is that it flowed so fast. I mean, it was like,
really
okay, what are you doing? Great, roll it. Okay, all right. Then he comes up over here. Like I had my NPC tried to dive for cover, and he jumped over the bar and like biffed it and rolled some bad things that happened. So he ended up skidding over the bar, hitting the back wall where all of the alcohol is kept on the shelves, and all the bottles came crashing down. And he got up like, what just happened? And of course he wasn't in cover because he failed his roll. And then, Jason and Sean Fielding were able to, take a shot at him pretty easily, I think. So, like it was fun to explain kind of like what happened narratively. These dice feel like they're not total narrative dice like Star Wars, for example, but they have a lot of the same effect with you rolling successes plus extra successes, right? You either succeed or you don't. And if you get extra successes, that's a better thing that happens. And then if you get the mess ups, that's kind of like the threat in Star Wars, right? It's kind of like the threat and advantage that you can have. So I think it's kind of like a not quite narrative system that I really like.
Yep. Yeah. So I think we probably hit on like the big things. The other thing about this game, which you mentioned earlier, is if you read really through a lot of the rule book, you start to get the sense that this really is it's a book about creating your castle, about creating your haven. What's the word that Sean used when we played the game? It's about creating your I don't know. There's a word for it, like your
stronghold.
City. Yeah, your stronghold. That's it. It's kind of a stronghold game. If there's a campaign set, you try to get the book here. You can do one-offs where you're just focused on characters living in a zombie world. But the Haven, a ton of the rules in this game are about making it a stronghold game. You can set up projects that the NPCs in your Haven are working towards to increase your defenses, to plant crops, to do gear projects that are making you better gear. Like there are a lot of stronghold rules in this game. So if you want to play that way, this game can absolutely support it. And then you don't really have to focus so much on your characters, which are normal people and are going to die when they biff one roll. But then you just go back and pull another character out of your Haven. Because really, then the game is about your Haven. And you're sending people out to do things to make your Haven better. So that would be the campaign way that I would play this game, is I'm playing about my stronghold, my Haven, not my people necessarily.
We played, so we talked all about kind of the system, the rule, like the difference in the rules and like really what sets it apart. But we did play the adventure out of the starter pack, right? I pulled up the cover of like what are the quick start rules that come in that starter set. And, it had things like great maps to work off of, like nice big maps that you could put on your table. It had, it comes with a bigger map. Like this is the one of Southwest Virginia. On the other side is actually of Northeast Georgia. And what it says in there is that like they provided this big old map of Southwest Virginia. It has little impact in actually the starter set. It's to use beyond that, right? Like you can start your haven somewhere in here, pick a city to start in, or outside of a city or something like that, and then you can basically use that. So it's really great. And here it comes with some of the pre-generated folks that you have there, and you can get a good look here of like the attributes and skills, and like your revolver and knife and stuff like that. But Jason, having played the starter set, what would you rate the starter set? Because we've played quite a few before.
Well, so it was a very simple little arc that I think helped learn the system, which is what they're supposed to do. I don't think there was anything overly ambitious about the story. It's a pretty straightforward story. It's what you would probably expect in the first couple episodes of a Walking Dead story arc, which you haven't gotten the big reveal. There's no giant thing going on. It's just, you run into a couple people that may be good, may be bad. And you run into, a group of people that you have to deal with. And there's a bunch of zombies all over the place that make it more complicated to do that. Right. Mm-hmm. So nothing special, but you know what? I think it provided a really fun time. I would say I felt like 3 people was a really good amount. We only had 3 players and a GM. I think if we had 5 to 6 people at the table, it might have been too much for that adventure.
I think so too.
Yeah, it would have been like
3 to 4.
Way easier. Like making it 3 made the adventure challenging and fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think 3 to 4 is like the sweet spot number there. 5 to 6 would have been too much.
Too much. It wouldn't have been challenging with 5 to 6.
Right.
Yeah. Well, or at least the GM, it wouldn't have been challenging as written. The GM would had to have, introduced a lot more, ramped up the challenge level on the fly of a lot of the things you had to deal with.
Yeah, 100%. And it would have had to be on the GM to do that because it wasn't built. The scenario says it's built to run for 3 to 5. And, I think that's accurate. And it really wasn't built to run for, I think, more than 3 to 4, really, so. Yeah. But go ahead.
I was going to say, I have to caveat that with recognizing that we have played a lot of systems, a lot of starter sets. Mm-hmm. We're seasoned role players. So people who maybe aren't as seasoned, I could see four people being very challenging for them. I think 3 was challenging for us, but I think we have a lot of creative people in our group that find interesting ways around problems to maybe make the situations less dangerous at times, which helps a lot. But if you maybe didn't have that level of creativity in your group, 4 people would probably be a minimum to try to make sure you could actually have a positive outcome of the adventure. But I thought it was okay. I've had, I think, a lot more engaging starter sets. But it comes with the dice. It comes with the rule book. It comes at the end of the experience. You've learned how to play the most of the encounter, assuming that you do the rules right. With swarms and things. It's not too bad. I did feel like when you were done, I was like, "Is that it?" And you were like, "Yeah, that's it." I was like, "Oh, I would have expected like maybe 1 or 2 more continuations of this setting or story inside of the starter pack."
Yeah, exactly. Because like you do a Chaosium starter thing, and it's got like 3 stories, right, or 3 things, and even Pendragon had 4 or 5 little mini scenarios that you could run. Now those scenarios were really quick, and like we did like 3 of them in a normal session.
Are they stubs to expand into a larger story?
You could absolutely take this one and expand it into a larger story, 100%. So like I think it was fine. I think the starter set did exactly what it needed to do. Introduce you to all the rules that you're going to encounter, right? Because you are definitely going to encounter swarms, you're going to encounter zombies, you're going to encounter people, you're going to encounter a lot of different things. And it let you be really creative in the universe. And really kind of stress test this, from a new person's perspective. So I think it did a great job in that sense. And I think that it hopefully gave a lot of people a lot of creative ways to tackle this universe the next time they play it,
There's one area that the starter set does not touch, and that's the stronghold or the haven part of it, which, is a giant part of the core rule book.
Right.
But that's not what this starter set touches. It's more about your traditional group of people going out and having to deal with a situation in a world around them.
There's some post-session mechanics that you do. Like you have these people who are your anchor that like help you ground yourself in reality, like your best friend or, your lover or whoever it is. And we had 2 people in our scenario that lost their anchors. And if that happens, there's some mechanics where they end up becoming shattered and they're just like not good for anything. They lose their drive, their will to live, like all of this kind of stuff, And like we didn't get to go through those mechanics because there was really no point with it. But it would have been interesting to see what had happened if you were playing with that character like on another scenario, So but I think the starter set did a great job. I would highly recommend picking it up. And as we said before, it is available now. Go to Free League Publishing to check it out. You can also pick it up on as PDF on Drive-Thru RPG. But I would recommend going and picking up the physical copy and getting the PDF with you. So go and check it out on Free League site and try it out for yourself. If you love The Walking Dead, I really, really, really think that you're going to love this RPG. And it does, as we mentioned in the beginning, it does find that balance of being a great RPG with great mechanics in an IP that you know and love without it feeling kitschy or gimmicky or whatever. I think it strikes that balance super well, and I had a ton of fun with it.
Not from a system standpoint.
I think a lot of us had a lot of fun too.
From a universe standpoint, if you were going to GM a long campaign that would go for a year, would you feel like you had enough story?
Yeah.
In the universe, you think you could do a different episode, getting together maybe once a month, and come up with a dozen unique stories without it feeling shampoo, rinse, repeaty?
Well, the way that this, that's where I think the stronghold comes in. The way that the mechanics are with the stronghold is you can decide on projects that you want to do. We need to bolster the defenses of our stronghold, and then the GM can present situations or roll on situations like there's a problem with the stronghold defenses, or there's a raid that comes through, or so. And there are solo rules in this book. I think the stronghold mechanics actually tend themselves very much towards a GM-less play of the system. Yeah. So I think that are there story arcs you can go out and buy that give you a lot of universe settings and things? I don't know. Absolutely. I mean, the game was just released, so no, there aren't. But there are plenty of things in here that would let you just set the universe up, the setting, and then play inside that setting.
And then let it run.
Yeah, and let it run kind of by itself and see where the game takes you.
Cool.
It would be that way.
I think also if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, you can come up with a lot of scenarios on your own. Like it doesn't take a lot of work to kind of figure that out. You know what I mean? Like maybe you need to go, sign a treaty with another settlement for trading rights or something like that, and something goes bad along the way, right? Or there's a miscommunication and now suddenly you find yourself at odds with them. Like, what are you guys going to do? There's scavenging raids you can go on. There's a lot of different things that I think you can come up with that without a ton of effort. But I do think that you have to be very careful about falling into the rinse and repeat. And to be fair, the show fell into a rinse and repeat with a lot of its episodes, and so you have to be careful about that. And but I think that you could do it, and again, this is a game where I think you could play a 1 to 2 to 3 arc session, leave it for a little bit, and come back in 6 months and pick it up again like you'd never left off when you've got more ideas to run. So you don't have to feel like you have to make 12 episodes.
That's right. And people aren't like it's so invested in leveling up their character that's just like, oh well, if we're not playing, I'm never going to make level 10. Like we have that in D&D all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Interesting. Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds great.
Yeah, I know. I've already got another scenario rattling around in my head. I'm gonna write it up, and I think we're gonna another group together. So Dan, we hope to have you on one of those, and you can come play against zombies.
Sure. You never shed a tear over killing a zombie. Zombies and Nazis, just kill them, no problem.
Right? Zombie Nazis, even better.
Zombie Nazis. There you go. There's your story hook.
Exactly. So, well, everybody, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We know that there's a lot of interest around this game, and so go check it out. And if it's for you, go ahead and pick it up. And we thank you for listening. Give us a like, give us a share, give us all the fun stuff on social media. Give us a mention if you want to. We love hearing from those who listen to our show. So, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you all at the tables. Have a good night, everybody.
See ya.
Good night.